In October 2024, we gathered at the PASI Legislative Summit to tackle a profound and troubling question. Why do our judicial systems seemingly disregard the Constitution, leading to the fracturing of families? The issue of parental alienation has evolved into a silent epidemic, often manipulating as a powerful weapon during divorce disputes. This manipulation not only harms the relationships between parents and their children, but also inflicts emotional and psychological turmoil on the children themselves. As policymakers engage in lengthy discussions about shared parenting arrangements, child support formulas, and custody regulations, the true victims, our children, are often left on the sidelines. They face the emotional fallout of these contentious debates while their lives are dissected as if they were mere bargaining chips in legal negotiations. It is imperative that we come together as a community to advocate for the meaningful change in our family courts. We must unite to ensure that the voices of children are prioritized, fostering environments where they can thrive rather than endure the negative ramifications of adult conflicts. Their well-being should always take precedence, driving us to demand legal reforms that uphold their rights, dignity, and emotional health. Only by standing together can we hope to create a future where children are shielded from unnecessary strife and their best interests at the forefront of every decision made.
Robert Garza is an advocate for equality, co-parenting, and parental rights, aiming to reform the family court system for the benefit of children. Over a 14-year custody battle, he faced 43 false CPS allegations, silver bullets, spending over $700,000 in family court, with all allegations ruled out. This experience fueled his dedication to support others facing similar challenges. Robert actively lobbies for legislative challenges, traveling to over 40 states to promote modern family law reform. In Texas, he played a key role in writing the Time Taken Back Bill, Senate Bill 718, signed into law by Governor Greg Abbott in 2023, which aims to restore lost parenting time, stop parental alienation, and improve court efficiently. Robert, nice to meet you, by the way. Thank you for all your hard work and advocacy. Welcome. We're excited to hear you present.
Thank you. Just want to tell Dr. William Barnett, thank you for. It's going on 15 years now, and Kim Bill, and this bill fixes a fundamental liberty and a parental right, and it brings healing and allows the child-parent relationship bond to be rebuilt from the lost time that was taken only by precaution by the court. What it was in Texas is in a lot of everyone else's states is usually it says may, and the judge has the discretion in every state when they return the child to return that time. And that's kind of what happened. I changed the legislation now in Texas, and it's also being changed in several other states. Now, the good thing about it is that it shifts the burden of proof on the it puts the burden of proof on the accused parent to prove why they should not have the time back. And it shifts the burden of proof, on the accusing parent to to tell the judge why they shouldn't have the time back. As it is now, everybody has to prove why they want that time back or why they need that time back, which also requires another hearing, another filing, costs thousands of more dollars, delays in court to get that lost time back until this bill had been done. So that's a huge win for 30 million Texans. The bill is also going in probably about 10 states right now. We have advocates, legislators. If anybody here wants it, we can put it in your state. So the time taken, time back bill, basically just a little bit of history on it. So, well, let me back up here too again. So it's been an amazing journey. Wish I wouldn't have had to gone through it or my family, but since we did, found out how to fix it. In Texas, it shouldn't cost a fit, willing, and able parent $700,000, 15 years, 43 plus false allegations, you know, these silver bullets. A lot of parents usually go through one or two and lose custody, because how are you going to prove that you didn't do something? So when you go through all these, any of those parents could be jailed or imprisoned at any point just due to one of these false allegations. I went through the whole gamut, you know, went through, gosh, probably 2 home studies, 2 psych evals, had probably 40 professionals involved in our case. Never once was convicted, arrested, anything like that. Uh-oh, have an echo. I don't know if that's me or someone else. Anyway, so going through this, the sad part is that a lot of resources were wasted. So what my ex ended up doing was she would go to CPS, I'm sorry, she would go to a mandatory reporter. Mandatory reporters by law have to report whatever. So she would go in there and say starving, dehydrating. Then that mandatory reporter is bound by the state to make a report to CPS. CPS thought they were doing the right thing in opening the case. And then the mandatory reporter thought they were doing the right thing in reporting it. Then my ex would go get the case file, go to a judge, and get an emergency protective order, restraining order based on an open CPS investigation. This, I really didn't want to say for about 10 years how this was happening, because there was no way to fix it. If I would have let everybody know what this was, then it would just be rampant on everybody doing this. So everything was rolled out 15 years later. And while I asked the judge for the time back, and the judge would just say, let's just move forward, hit the read. But she wasn't the one that was having this stuff done to her. And so, and we had several different judges that didn't catch on because they didn't know what was going on and stuff like that. So, one didn't know anything about law. So I went all the way about this. Ted Cruz, our state US Senator, everyone that I talked to said, go back down. Uh-oh, I saw unstable. Anyway, hopefully you can hear me. So after going through this process, they told me I had to go to my state senator. So I went to Angela Paxton, my state senator, talked to her. She said, look, here's the problem. Here's the solution. They thought it was amazing. Her whole group did, because what this did was it shifted the burden of proof onto the other parent. And it also freed up a lot of resources. So if you think about this, 43 plus times that's weird. 43 plus times that I was accused, what had ended up happening was that it would run the resources to so it would basically take up all the resources for the court system, and it would also use a lot of the resources that were for CPS. So that was one of the biggest travesties in this, is that whenever CPS would investigate it, that was 43 times that they could have been investigating children that were really being hurt. And so this bill returns those resources to the court system, to CPS, and because of the egregiousness of the allegations, the district attorney's office got involved in 2 different counties. So use their resources, and those are all ruled out. So this one bill, it doesn't really put anyone in jail. It doesn't fine them at all for doing this. But what it does do is it disincentivizes them making a allegation. It doesn't disincentivize making a real allegation. All 43 times, my allegations came by proxy. The mom never did it directly at any point. Me being a parent, if something was happening with my child, I would go directly to CPS and make those allegations, not doing it by proxy. And when they do this, they do it because they can't be sued. And that's kind of where that's coming from. So it's been a crazy journey, because when I had to testify in front of the Senate and the House, I have 2 minutes to talk about. And once I got up there, started choking up, and the my state senator came up, Angela Paxton, and put her hand on my back after about 30 minutes or 30 seconds of testifying, because it was probably one of the hardest things other than going through the family court system and parental alienation. Can y'all hear an echo?
Oh, I got it.
Okay. Uh-oh. It sounds like I think everyone just probably needs to turn their microphones off. That's what probably needs to happen. Anyway, so
Still on, it's this one.
oh.
It's going to now. That's up here.
So the sad part is that everyone thought they were doing the right thing. Just like kind of like I kept playing with my computer thinking it was mine. So everybody thought they were doing the right thing. And that's the sad part about this, is that nobody kind of knew where that started at. Now, parental alienation can only start, in my opinion, withholding the child or through these false allegations. So when I started going through this, I started looking at, where does this start at? I know, Dr. Barnett's putting it in the DSM and everything else, and that's amazing, because at the end of this, you have to be able to diagnose this. This is a huge disorder. But I wanted to kind of backtrack it to where it starts. And you can't do parental alienation if you can't accept a child for a long enough period to brainwash or to or alienate them. A lot of the judges that I've sat in on, a lot of these parents use parental alienation as to express to the court that this is happening. They don't, I guess it's a newer thing, and a lot of attorneys and judges don't understand it. Parental alienation is almost rejecting you. There's alienating behaviors, there's gatekeeping, there's bad mouthing, there's a lot of things, but it's only if the child's rejecting you. I've seen a lot of parents go in and try to tell the judge that they're alienating the other parents, alienating them, but the child was never rejecting them, and that's an issue. So you're trying to get this done in court. It's only when the child's rejecting you is when you should use that term, opinion. So ended up going through this. It took about 6 months to get my bill passed in the Senate and the House, which was crazy. It went through the first time, it went through bipartisan and unanimous. And in doing this, our Governor Abbott in Texas signed off on the bill on Father's Day. And so to me, that was like this huge gift to all parents that, he signed off on it and everything. If you want more information about it, you can Google SB 718 in Texas, and it will get you there. And then you can kind of see what had happened. Another thing is, while I've been going, I have joint custody. A lot of parents don't. And it's been pretty hard, especially going through this, because, supervised visits, parent facilitators, amicus attorneys, I ran the whole gamut, and a lot of people can't do that. We're trying to change the laws right now in Texas and a bunch of other states for people that are going through this. We have trying to put in documentary. If you're going through this, it's called We the Parents, that you can Google. It's on YouTube. I'm in it. I was just on Dr. Phil a couple of weeks ago. It just aired. It was about the family court and the corruption that's going on. When we went to interview them, they had saw my story in this We the Parents, and they had seeing what happens in family court, and they wanted us to come in and talk about it. Well, after about 3 hours of interviewing, they saw the advocacy that me and another guy, Rustin Wright, were doing, and they want us to come back and do a full episode just on our advocacy. So that was that was pretty amazing. Since then, I've also had a couple of things come up. So there's continuing education classes for lawyers and judges. They're called CLEs. It's continuing law education. They have to take these courses. Because I was able to change the law in Texas, they invited me to come speak at these conferences. In Austin, about a month ago, actually, Dr. Barnett was there, and Ashish Joshi, and I was the third speaker. And judges speak to them about all the stuff going on. Well, in there, I got to tell them that, standard possession is about 29 to 32%. Anything less than 40% to either parent, custody-wise, is putting our children at risk for alcoholism, teen pregnancy, high school dropout, incarceration. So I got to tell these lawyers and judges, for 50 years, our family court has been sentencing our children to be at risk. You should have seen their mouths drop. They're just like, whoa, like they didn't realize. But when you put facts behind something that's been happening, it changes the perception of it. And I hope all those judges and lawyers understand when I was in there talking about this stuff. And the same thing with temporary orders. A lot of you that have been through family court, when you have temporary orders, I explained to them too, to please be mindful, these judges, when you're going in there and having 20 minutes of a hearing each or total, it's devastating to the litigant, because when you get temporary orders, they're not temporary orders. Those temporary orders are most people's final orders, because they don't have the money or the time to go through kind of like what I did with my family. But parental alienation is real. I believe in Dr. Barnett's work. I think it's going to be more of a education thing with these lawyers and judges, and it's going to be more pronounced. A lot of these CLE classes, after I did that one, they're Dr. Barnett's work and doing that in other ones. Now, like I said, parental alienation can only happen if you can withhold the child. And false allegations in Texas, I solved that with the time taken, time back bill. Now my ex is withholding the children with interference with child custody. So I had to figure out how to stop this one. And interference with child custody is a state jail felony in every state. You can't do that. And that's a criminal matter. That's not a civil matter. So when you call the cops and they come out, they say, go back to family court. It's a civil matter. It is not. The way that you do this is that you tell them that you want to report a crime, and by law, they have to take your report. Once they take that report, you tell them that you want to do it under whatever interference with child custody is in your state. In our state, it's 25.03. And it's a penal code. It's not a civil code. It's not a family court code. It's a penal code. And so they take the report, they give it to their detective in their youth division, because it has to do with children. Once the detective finds probable cause, which he will, because it's a black and white issue, he'll turn it over to the district attorney's office. The district attorney's office schedules it for it to be heard by the grand jury. The grand jury hears it, and then they choose to indict or not indict. Now, I've talked to several district attorney's offices, and their excuse is they don't want to prosecute these because they don't know if it's the first time, the second time they give a parent a state jail felony, if it's only been 2 days that they hijacked the kid or something like that. I took care of that with my time taken, time back strikes law. So I'm taking that felony, state jail felony in every state, and I'm making it 2 misdemeanors before it becomes a felony. So what I'm changing the law to is the first time the policeman goes out, they give a $500 fine to the offending parent. That's a misdemeanor. The second time, another $500 fine. The third time, it already is in every state. These two bills in every state will almost destroy parental alienation. And if you want send them tickets in every
Hold on.
state.
Can you give your sentence again? You froze, so we missed your last sentence, and it's important to us. I'm sorry. Could you
Sorry.
just repeat
Yeah.
that?
So want these bills in every state. Whatever state you're in, just contact me through Facebook. It's Robert Garza on Facebook. Just comment in one of the comments, because my inbox is crazy flooded with stuff. But if you want these bills in every state, I can amend. I can look at your code. I can put my code in there. It's literally 4 lines, and you can basically have it in your state. It's super easy to do. I didn't know how to do this before it passed. I was able to understand how this is done. And now I'm in CLE classes teaching lawyers and judges on laws. I'm testifying in front of judiciary committees. I've been in about 43 states also, about shared parenting, parental alienation, false allegations, and interference with child custody. So I'm just a parent, just like most of you were. I'm not an attorney, not any of these things, but yet because they messed with the wrong parent, and the court is actually breeding a bunch of advocates that are tired of this, and we're figuring out. I've had to learn. What's that?
You had a room full of applause while you were
Oh,
saying that. I want to hear you heard it.
thank you. I didn't hear it. I
Well,
had
that's
to
what I'm telling you.
learn.
Please restate that sentence. I'm sorry. When we were cheering, we didn't hear you.
Okay.
You said you met the
So
wrong parent, and then
yeah, you messed with the wrong parent.
we roared for you. So could you go from there, if you would?
Yes.
Pop.
So they messed with the wrong parent. I am not going to give up my kids. What animal do you know? If you go take a cub from, I think you would be able to take a human that's your flesh and blood, and just because of some words, just be able to take them on a precaution. That's the other thing. So while I was going through this, I went to Ted Cruz also, and he turned me to my state senator, and I did, and he said, well, because they're not violating any of your constitutional rights, it has nothing to do with us. You have to go to your state senator. After I changed the law, I rethought this. They're violating your First Amendment right. I'm sorry, your fourth, excuse me. I thought about this. They're violating your Fifth Amendment right for due process by taking your parental right on a precaution. They're violating your constitutional right. They can't do that. They're also violating your parental right and your constitutional right for the 14th Amendment for care, custody, and control. They can't do that either. So after thinking about this, I went back to Ted Cruz and talked to his staff and John Cornyn's office, and they said that if I could get this bill through a couple of states, or even in their legislation, come back to them level, that, because then it will go through all 50 states and become a federal law. And so if I can get these 2 laws passed in every state, this will destroy parental alienation, because the only 2 ways that this starts, if you trace it back, is through a false allegation, which I solved that in Texas, or through interference with child custody and withholding the child for a particular amount of time, enough time to brainwash them. That $500 fine, if you do it the first time that they interfere, that first weekend, that's a Friday, or let's just say a Thursday. If they interfere with your Friday custody, that's 2 strikes right there. The second weekend of your custody. So within literally 2 weeks, this whole thing will be done. No going to family court, no, going through this whole process of, finding probable cause and like, it's gonna return the resources back to the court system. It's gonna return the resources back to the DA, the grand jury. When the cop goes out, this is the only police will have to deter interference with child custody. I don't know how much time I have. Do I have 30 minutes, an hour? What do I have? Anybody know?
You have 20 more minutes, Robert.
Okay, great. Perfect. I could talk for days on this stuff. I've learned so much. I should not, as a parent, have to learn criminal law, family law, just to be able to be a parent to my children. This whole industry is corrupt, and it needs to be, a lot of people say burn and stuff. I don't think so. I think it was meant to fix some things, and I get it. But I think with some tweaks like the time taken, time back bill, the 3-strike law, those two things will end a lot of this stuff before it starts. So again, I applaud, Dr. Barnett for doing it, but by the time they can diagnose this parental alienation, it's too late. The child has been affected, and so is the family, and it's just horrible by the time it gets there. So with all these things, with Dr. Barnett, parental alienation, the DSM, and these two laws in every state will devastate this problem. And the other thing that we're doing here in Texas is that I'm also the director for Americans. Well, I was the director starting for Texans for Judicial Accountability. And what it is that we saw that there was a need for cameras in the courtroom. That's going to stop a lot of the games that are being played also. And then also there's some other things that we have going on. So whenever a judge now in Texas, but they publish them, but they don't publish what judge. They can keep that judge's private, but they say that they sanctioned a judge. That does no good. We need transparency and accountability in Texas. And so Texans for Judicial Accountability is going to do report mandating. And so another thing is the video and audio of everything, of all the court hearings, and you can't do ex parte communications anymore. That if there's any backdoor discussions in the judge's chambers, there has to be a court reporter recording at every point. This will stop a lot of the backdoor deals and the ex parte communications. The financial disclosures. We're also making judges, if you have 2 lawyers in their courtroom and one of them has donated to your campaign, you have to announce in court that this lawyer or this law firm is donating to your campaign fund. That will stop a lot of, or at least more transparency. There's also something called the SCJC. I just testified on that in Austin a couple of days ago. And it's a committee that's used to oversee the judges. And if you have a complaint, you can complain to them and they're supposed to do something about it. Well, that's not been happening. And when they do reprimand a judge, they don't put the judge's name on there. So we're changing these laws, and the SCJC, we're actually putting some citizens on that committee. That way it's not just lawyers and judges. If something shady's happening or they're not doing their job. So because we're changing these laws in Texas, now we've made another one, because we have lawful in other states that want these bills also. So we've made Americans for Judicial Accountability, and now they've made me the director for that one. So we can put these same laws into your states. It's not hard. I'm telling you, the way that we have these, you literally take our PDF, you take it to your state legislators, you give it to them, say, I want this in our state, and they take it, and it's just a no-brainer. All these things are going to change very quickly in the family court. If we can get all these things, a lot of this parental alienation will stop. The cameras in the courtroom will stop the games, the 3 strikes law, everything that we're doing. But it's crazy because it's a bunch of advocates like us that went through the family court system that they're breeding us. So, but anyway, another thing is I've been talking and doing a bunch of gosh, I went on like a crazy campaign. Every week it's something different. You know, Dr. Phil, been interviewed by a national rights organization. You can see some of these on my timeline. If anyone has any questions, you're more than welcome to ask.
There's one in the chat, but before I even get to that, you know, we're here doing model legislation for across the country today, and this weekend. We were hoping that you could stay on or at least be available for calls so that you could help us do your
Oh, absolutely.
reproduce your templates across the country.
Which also leads to, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Which also leads to,
We need you to send me all this, the bill with the 4 lines highlighted, along with this other PDF stuff, because I will put it into the Google Drive for PAC. And this way we all have access to it.
Who's speaking? Joan?
as Joan, our host.
Yes.
Okay,
Hosted.
great.
Sorry.
Her name didn't light up, so I was just wondering. Okay. Put it, let's see here. Select.
Email it and they'll upload it.
Okay.
Consortium 2021@gmail. And then I'll get it up by tomorrow morning. It'll be in the Google Drive. For everybody who's here, we do have a Google Drive.
Okay.
Please, help if you can't access it.
So there's another question in the chat, Robert.
Yes.
Were there any organizations that joined you in support? Were there any organizations that actively lobbied against you?
Okay. So I have a saying, and it's you have to phrase new legislation in such a way it can't be opposed. That's what I did with my time taken, time back bill. I phrased it that when it has their parental right taken away on a precaution, and after that investigation's over and ruled out, time to repair that parental bond that was taken only by precaution. What legislator do you know is going to raise their hand and be like, I don't think that child deserves that time back? The first time, bipartisan and unanimous. Our 3 strikes policy, three strikes law, it's phrased that it's literally 4 lines. So when a parent, I mean, basically I'm taking a state jail felony. Who wants to put a parent in jail the first time this happens? So we're giving them 3 warnings before it becomes a state jail felony. Who's going to say, yeah, I think the parent should just have a state jail felony the first time? They're not going to. You have to think outside the box on this legislation and make it very easy, pretty, and concise. It's literally 4 lines. When a policeman comes out, the first and second time, it's a $500 fine. The third time, it becomes a state jail felony, what it already is. Done. That's every state. Same thing with these cameras in the courtroom. You should see how those are written. Our policies are amazing for those. Judges, and we have Supreme Court judges here in Texas that support all of our Texans for Judicial Accountability legislation. The 3-strike law and for interference with child custody and the time taken, time back bills are just my bills. Nothing to do with Texans for Judicial Accountability, but you can have either ones. And just so you know, I got my bill passed. It was only me and 2 other people testified for it. I had a ton of support that I could have said, all these groups that were behind it, whatever, but I didn't. I wanted to see if a parent could do this by themselves, and it worked. It passed.
I had you on mute. Go ahead again.
One of the things that we are going to have everybody do when we break into our committee groups, Julie's suggestion, is that we need you to, some of you be the opposition. You need to be reading it as if you were the opposition, so we can make sure that we're covering all bases. So whatever bills we create, there is less opportunity for them to oppose something. So you have to play devil's advocate. So we need half of you to play devil's advocate and half of you to play pro rather, for it.
Another question here?
Thank you.
Yeah, right. Go ahead.
know it's been fairly early on.
Can you hear?
in the process with the bills, but have you seen a decrease in some of the higher custody disputes because of the 3 strikes?
Are you aware of any dispute in
So
high conflict litigation?
Presented?
Any data, any awareness of?
3 strikes law is not. I've seen when I came out and figured HR advocates that it is a criminal matter and not a civil matter, and I showed them what to do on my Facebook page. They literally, it's a 1-minute video. And I was outside the district attorney's office when I learned the process of it. And so I had to go teach my police and their staff how these steps do it, because they've been learning all this time that they just go out and say it's a civil matter, but they don't understand that it's not. And so I literally had to learn criminal law and civil law to teach them what the difference is if you go each way. You could do it at the same time. So if you think of it this way, anyway, back to your question. So yes, I've seen some people get some resolution from being able to learn this process, because you can explain it better. And if you can explain it to them, then they understand it. But in Texas, well, actually put it this way, all 50 states right now, CPS, out of 100 of their cases that they have, there's only 15 to 18% that are reason to believe. Most of these are just false allegations and people being vindictive. I'm hoping with this legislation going through that those rise, not because that I hope being abused, but there's more resources allowed back to the system to have them find these kids that are being abused rather than investigate false allegations.
Carolyn, I think what you were asking for is statistical data. So are you going to be able to maintain some statistical data on whether this 3 strikes is performing the way we needed to perform? So when we walk into our legislators, we can say, this was enacted in Texas. They've got a 50% drop in allegations or whatever.
Not that you're not doing enough already. Okay,
Yeah.
we just a lot
So-
more for you. We have a list.
Yeah, it's okay. No, it's okay. So what happens right now is that we're putting it through our legislation right now. So it won't go into effect until September 1st, 2025. When it does, that's when we can start keeping track. Our legislators meet every 2 years. So we'll have that data later, but I've talked to numerous police departments and their staff, and they want this law immediately. They're like, I wish it was done right now, because it's the only tool that our officers have. They said, we have to hire more staff every 1st, 3rd, and 5th weekend and waste those resources because we know this is an issue, but we can't do anything about it. This will return those resources back to the police department, and it incentivizes them, which is even better, because that $500 fine goes to the municipality. So now they're making money by going out and addressing this rather than just going out and taking a report. I'm telling you, this is a win-win.
We're with you. We look forward to working on the bills. Go ahead.
I have a question. First, thank you for all your hard work. And second, please keep in mind that these problems extend beyond just family court and child custody, and they extend into guardianship of, young adults. This alienation also exists
Explain.
there. So as you go about with your legislative efforts, there's little tweaks that you can put in to keep this broader audience in mind. That would be helpful.
Betsy, let me just explain. When she says guardianship, she means aged out children who are handicapped. And there are now adults but have learning disabilities and their parents are their guardians because they cannot function in society by themselves.
Okay. Yes, I understand that it comes from other places too, but I'm trying to stop like this big bleeding that, it's gouging right now. And so I want to like suture this up really quickly. And I think if I can do that, then we can kind of address these other little things. But I think these two laws alone and cameras in the courtroom will stop a lot of these things before they start. But yes, I am totally aware of those things. Yes.
Robert, we have two more quick questions. Go ahead, Julie. Cameras in the courtroom.
You know.
We crafted a bill a couple of years ago.
Uh,
Can you hear her?
That it's very hard not to crack.
It's a hard nut to crack. The issues are, yeah.
You're doing a good job.
Hi,
So
Robert.
do you,
So he knows who you are.
what is that?
Julie Grayson. I'm an attorney and a court-appointed special advocate for children. And when we tried to craft a bill for the cameras in the courtroom issue, we got a lot of feedback from 11 different jurisdictions with regard to confidentiality. If you have minors and you're discussing this, just like in court captions where they give you just the initials of the minor child, they are incredibly concerned about distribution of videos and cameras in the courtroom that can capture names of people, identities, circumstances that unfortunately people can figure out who they are within their community if people are on a Zoom listening to these hearings or in the courtrooms themselves. So that to me is a very, very difficult bill to get passed. And I just wanted to get feedback on that and have you comment.
Yeah, especially because
Yes,
it's really good these days at searching for their name on the internet.
right. So if you're an attorney in Texas, I don't know about your state, but we have that you can mark it sensitive data and not sensitive data. And sensitive data will redact everything. And so that's one way of doing it. But with these recordings, it's only for the litigants and their counsel. The general public can't get them. And same way, if you look at Michigan, I don't know if anyone there from Michigan, but Michigan supposedly, when you have a hearing, they give you a DVD as soon as you walk out of the courtroom.
That should
And
be-
so I've yet to go to Michigan to go look at this, but that's one of the things that I want to get to. I want to go sit in that courtroom, watch it happen, and talk to a judge and how they got that passed. But that supposedly is a bill in Michigan. That supposedly is already
County by county, a expert resident said.
In Michigan, so you have to get permission from the chief judge.
Permission from chief judge to get it.
If it doesn't allow it.
If the court doesn't allow it.
Yeah, Oakland County, for example.
Oakland County.
I believe, they will not give you access.
They won't let it. So you have to go over their heads and go to the chief judge.
Other counties are
Okay.
Or more favorable, county by county.
well
We
in
want to get in
Texas-
touch with you. There's I and another expert witness from Michigan want to get in touch with you. Maybe you can
Yeah.
share your email.
That was Sean Wigand, so you know who he is, works in Michigan. Does everybody care whether their name is listed so that if somebody needs to access or get to you, I can put that out there? I can put it out, okay.
One
I mean, I don't know how many people are on this Zoom. I'll give you my phone number. I mean, I want this to stop.
We do want your contact information. I'll put my information in the chat and I'll spread it to the rest. Yeah, he wants help. So hold on. One more question. He's gonna come. We have somebody coming around here. Make sure my thing is on. Is it?
I have a question, but I'm gonna have to lay out a foundation because we are in Connecticut. In USA versus Ramini, the Fifth Circuit realized that protective orders have become a tool of divorce attorneys to get de facto custody of the child for the women. In Connecticut, 30,000 protective orders are issued each year, really without probable cause, because all you have to do is call up the police, say I'm concerned about my safety, and boom, the husband or the father because 95% of all protective orders in Connecticut are
That's
issued.
not true. That is not true. I'm in Connecticut. That's not true.
These are statistics. I'm quoting them in federal court about it.
So basically, that's
Point out-
every state that you can get a protective order, restraining order on a false allegation.
Yes,
Okay,
and it happened to me 9 times.
okay.
9 times I was falsely arrested, 9 times in Connecticut, and I was the only one who went to jury trial in Connecticut and defeated them 9 times by jury. So the point I'm trying to make is a whole different matter. The moment you get a protective order, it is the courts in Connecticut that order supervised visitation. You cannot have regular visitation. You have to have supervised visitation at a cost of $100 an hour. Okay. I have contested this in federal court because supervised visitation is unconstitutional under Murdoch versus Pennsylvania. If the right of your commerce with your child is a First Amendment right, you cannot be forced to pay for the exercise of that First Amendment right. And so I have brought this case in federal court. I wanted to know, have you had any entries into the area of supervised visitation being a barrier to in a cause of parental alienation? Because what happens is the moment supervised visitation is ordered, the parents don't see the child because they can't afford to do so.
Well, of course, and that's where a lot of this stems from too. But you're on supervised visits because it came from a false allegation, right? So
Yes.
that's why my time taken, time back bill deters that, because if they hijack your Thanksgiving or your Christmas, then you get 2 Christmases in a row. If you read it, it says the exact time and the exact type of time back. And so it deters that from happening. Now, the crazy is crazy. I get it. And there's going to be those out there, but it's going to stop a lot of the stuff. But yes, and judges, let me tell you, if they're violating your constitutional rights on a precaution, they don't care about this restraining order, protective order. They do it because it's in the best interest of the child. That's one thing. So this wild card that all the states use, the child, you're going to 20th post down, I think. I wrote a paper. It's literally maybe 5 paragraphs. Me and Daniel, so a guy named Daniel, we found where the best interest of the child came from. It's actually defined in the federal code, section Title 4E. It's actually defined. The family courts took the title. They didn't take the definition. It's there. If you quote that definition, it's going to blow your mind. It's only if there's bodily harm to a child is the only way that they can use that standard of the best interest of the child. It is defined. Go to my Facebook page and go look, but you have to quote it. It's kind of like when you go in and you tell the judge that, you know, I don't know, whatever it is. And that's why someone says, well, Smith says da 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 da. You have to have that code to judge that this is where it came from. Go look at my Facebook page. And if you can't find it, let me know. But I wrote it to our Texas judiciary and I explained word for word where it's defined, what it says, and it's also CAPTCHA defines it also, the best interest of the child. The family court only borrowed the term. They didn't borrow the definition.
I agree with you. The best interest of the child standard in our state code, we are contesting it as being unconstitutional because it gives too much discretion to a judge to decide based upon issues that are not necessarily relevant.
So is it defined in your state code?
Best interest, best interest of the child is defined in our state code, which gives the judge.
It's not in Texas. It's not defined.
To the child.
Yeah. Well, they violate all these things, but you have to let them know that you know they're violating them. And that's the frustrating part. I'm pro se now. if I showed you, they just filed a 2,000-page lawsuit against me. I'm pro se. This guy's board certified. I just went in 2 weeks ago and I was pro se and kicked his butt because I used his own CLE against him. And, you know, it's just crazy, but they don't follow the law. You know, if you have to beat someone with false allegations, with gray areas, what the decree doesn't say, then you're not a very good attorney. And if you're operating in that gray area, then you don't have a case.
Allison, stay with us. We wanted to hear what, if you want, certainly. Did you want to be heard about, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in Connecticut and I'm watching what's going on. We have so many corrupt judges and even attorneys. My own attorney is actually advocating for my ex-husband when I have been, you know, I went 21 months without having equal access to my son, living 4 blocks away from him. But the retired judge, we mediated because of all the information I was learning about so many cases where kids were being taken away from the fit parent and being turned over to a parent that was not. And I'm just concerned because this is a game about making money. Lawyers want to make money. They don't care about the kids. They, you know, not all, many do not. And so I think it even has to come from that direction. But also there needs to be some punitive aspects to psychological abuse, because just even the allegations of well, first, you need to start with why is the couple divorcing in the first place? And if there are allegations of a long history of domestic abuse, and psychological abuse is not being taken, you know, seriously, and that's a huge issue. Because if a child is witnessing one parent being abused by the other, the child is automatically being abused. And then they learn this, and this is unhealthy. And then they can go on to do this to the rejected, targeted parent, which is what's happening in my situation. Not only was my ex-husband abusive, my child's being abusive to me in my own home, but I've learned how to handle him. The game is, how can I, you know, how can the abuser weaponize the child to reject the other parent, you know, so the other targeted parent doesn't know how to handle your child who's rejecting you. And so I am raising a brainwashed child, and thankfully I'm back at 50-50 after 21 months of not having my son equally. And it's incredibly difficult because I'm dealing with I have to co-parent with my abuser, and I have to co-parent with the abuser who is counter-parenting and doesn't want my child's best interest. Yet the retired judge was supporting my ex all along. So it's such a corrupt system because they're making so much money off of us because they see how much, you know, families have. And, you know, so it just, I think, needs to start with, why is the couple getting divorced in the first place? Because that will answer a lot. And then you look at family trauma of each parent, because if one parent was abused growing up, you know, how did they overcome that, or did they not? So there's a lot of pieces, I think, that kind of need to be brought, because it's like the whole person rather than just a piece. But I applaud what you're doing, and I like the direction you're going in, you know, because Joan's been helping me for the last 3 years, and the 3 strikes rule, my attorney could care less. She didn't want to, you know, advocate for me. So anyway,
I think I'm sorry you went through that, and I think everybody can get their pound of flesh from the court system by implementing these laws. The 3 strikes law and the time taken, time back law. All you have to do is go to your state senator or house rep, hand it to them and say, I want this in our state. That's literally that easy. It's a no-brainer. They can't really argue with it. It's a needed thing, and it saves the court's time, everyone's time. It puts the resources back to where they need to be.
Great. I just want to add one quick thing.
Robert, hold on. We're just because of time. Robert, you have a minute to close if you'd like, or Joe, did you have something specific?
It's actually got a very unique case, guys. She never, ever went into court. We have done everything through mediation. Trust me, it still costs just as much money because her ex has a tremendous amount of money.
It cost about $300,000. And we did collaborative before. I listened to Bill Eddy in terms of I tried to de-escalate as much as possible, and I could have gone to the police.
That doesn't
but
work.
They didn't care. Yeah, so.
They just keep pulling. It's a tug of war, and they just keep pulling that rope in. Allison, definitely reach out to me on Facebook. I
Great,
want to
thank
talk.
you. Great,
you.
excellent.
And I'll give you some ideas. And one of the things is, if anyone's going through alienation, if you had time with your kids, take them to places where you had memories at, and their own memories will flood them, like the zoo, the park, a pond, fishing, whatever that was before the alienation. And you'll see kind of them return, because that alienation will kind of fade over, kind of like a bad dream, kind of like what you have in your child was horrible. But now that you have your child back, even though they're alienated a little bit, it's kind of like a bad dream that had happened that's fading.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, we're right. We just talked about this yesterday.
We're-
Make new memories.
Thank you so much, Robert.
Thank you, everybody.